Sitting here at Two Beards in Swakopmund, I've got Mark with me, and he's going to tell us all about the origins of coffee. So the story is apparently that some guy saw his goats getting excited.
That certainly is the legend, David. The thought is that Kaldi observed his goats in Ethiopia, and they're particularly excited, and somehow we went from he observed them eating a fruit on a tree to, hey, let's drink coffee and have the same effect. I'm not sure how we got from point A to point B, but we know that that is very much the legend of coffee. 500-600 AD, we do know that there were monks in Ethiopia. They were out of the Yemen, and they were making a nice thick syrupy tar from the coffee cherries, which gave them a nice stimulation in the evenings, and they could actually lie awake and observe the stars and record those. So we know that that certainly happened. From there, coffee kind of started to spread with trade, right? It makes sense. So you had the Silk Route, which was running Marco Polo's time, and coffee moved up into the Yemen along the Silk Route, finally making its way into the Netherlands. From the Netherlands, you had the Dutch East India Trading Company that moved coffee down into India and the rest of Asia as they slowly spread through. A couple of trips after Christopher Columbus, we moved some coffee from Europe through to the North Americas. Coffee is quite a sensitive plant to grow, so the lovely weather conditions in the States during summer were fantastic, but winter was always an issue and coffee trees were dying, and slowly it migrated down into Central South America where conditions were far better for coffee to grow. Coffee then slowly worked its way all the way back and came into port in Kenya, ironically, a neighboring country pretty much to Ethiopia, and it circumnavigated the globe before it actually started spreading through Africa. And now we've got some really high-end coffees from Burundi all the way through Rwanda, even down as far as Zimbabwe. South Africa's now got some really good coffees too. Right up into the north of Africa as well. So that spread has been quite interesting to see.
So we talk about Ethiopia. Where are the main sort of coffee growing regions of the world these days?
Main regions at the moment, it's called the Coffee Belt. We kind of look between the two tropics of Capricorn and Cancer. We're looking for high altitude, we're looking for rainforest conditions. That coffee likes a lot of moisture. And then we're looking for volcanic soils. That's quite key. I'm specifically considering the Arabica bean, which is a bit more fussy, and I'll get to why we're talking about Arabica, but yeah. So that's your coffee belt. You've got Central Americas, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico. They're all known for very high-end coffee, same as Costa Rica. Brazil do about 40% of the world's coffee, so they're quite significant. If you start moving into Vietnam, they do about 20 to 30% of the world's coffee, so they're also a big producer. India do well, and then Africa is really starting to come to the fore. It's quite interesting with climate change at the moment, because we're starting to see coffee down into South Africa, as I spoke. We're also starting to see coffee being grown in Australia in certain areas, so that's quite interesting to see that shift too. But generally, there's a nice coffee belt between the two tropics.
If we talk about, talking about Arabica and different types of coffee, how do you sort of grow a different coffee tree if everything started from one?
Sure, cool. So there are a few different varietals within the coffee family. There's actually quite a few of them, but the main focused ones that we know of generally and are in public conversation is the traditional Robusta. The Italians like a very bold, very rich, lots of caffeine kick. That's a Robusta coffee. It's not grown under specialty conditions. It's more of a machine harvested, bulk grown coffee that's got a bit of a horrible reputation as the slave trade many years ago. There are some decent Robustas, but the majority of it is at that focus. Got a high caffeine content, about 2.8%, comparing to a black tea at about 2.4, 2.6%, and Arabica is only 1.4% as a comparison. But the Arabica is the one with all the flavors. So if you're a wine drinker, a red grape has got about 430 chemical characteristics to change the flavor of a bottle of red wine. An Arabica bean, we've got about 1,300 to play with. None of that really matters. As humans, we can only taste between 20 and 28 items anyway. So I guess what's important is that we're not tasting the skunk and the petroleum and the battery acid. It's that we're tasting nice nuttiness, fruitiness, we're tasting the berries, we're tasting the chocolate notes. So whether you're a wine maker or you're a coffee roaster or you're a gin distiller, what you're trying to do is make sure that you highlight the good notes, the pleasant flavors. So yeah, we focus on specialty grade Arabica, and yeah, the distribution of the coffee I described is very much Arabica focused. Robusta, Liberica, they're all newer coffees from about the 1700s that they started shifting through, also into South and Central America, into Africa as well. There's some bulk large farms on that part of the world. Interestingly, South Africa has discovered the race Mosa bean, which is essentially the rooibos of coffee. Indigenous to South Africa, it's got a 0 caffeine content by default. Charles Dennison's busy working with that very nicely. He's very well known in South African circles, and on the global stage, he's growing that beautifully up in Mpumalanga and down in KZN. He's putting that together. Beautiful, beautiful coffee. Still very expensive at the moment because agriculture's just started. Running a farm, setting up costs and all that means that your product costs a lot more. It's also very unique, very exclusive. So yeah, it's a high-end coffee. Those are the ones that are generally well known of and well spoken of. In the specialty coffee industry, we focus on the Arabica. It's got the flavor profiles, and then also importantly, it's got the traceability. We know which farm, we know the social conditions, we know the trade conditions, whether it's fair trade, organic, whether it's the 4 Cs, whether it's Rainforest Alliance. There's a whole lot of things we're looking for, bird friendly, etc. So once we've looked at all of that, we look at what a coffee actually tastes like, which is also quite key. And then we do our imports from there. So that's how we then select coffees.
So I mean, the growing conditions can influence the taste of the bean, not just the obviously different parts of the world, but the way the plants are treated. Does that impact on? Absolutely.
So generically, coffees from Central and South America are very bright, very fruity, got a nice good acidity on the mouth. Coffees from Indonesia are very dark, very chocolatey. I don't know if you've watched the movie The Bucket List. He had his Kopi Luwak that he was so excited about. The reason the Kopi Luwak was so special was that it was a coffee from Indonesia that had a whole lot of acidity attached. The acidity was attributed to the fact that it had gone through a palm cat and the stomach acid had eaten onto the coffee bean. And suddenly you had a bit of that acidity that was found in Central America in an Indonesian coffee, and it became quite exclusive and one of the world's most wonderful things to try and do, and very expensive. That was in the late 80s, particularly, that it took that focus. Generally in the Americas, coffee is bright, fruity, acidic. In Africa, we got a lot of good earthiness too, obviously because of the types of soils we've got. But those are starting to blur those lines because people are obviously into breeding different coffees. They're putting coffees in different ranges. So we're getting beautiful fermented coffees coming out of Burundi, coming out of Ethiopia, bright, acidic, no earthiness attached at all, and some extraordinary coffee. At the same time, you're getting really, really dark chocolatey coffee starting to come out of Guatemala. They're really starting to play quite nicely. But the soil is key, the type of soil. The altitude is really important as well. The altitude also affects how we roast the coffee. The higher the altitude, we call it a strictly hard bean. It's quite a much harder, moisture content varies. So the way we roast that is also different too. We're a little bit more tough to break through the initial barrier, and then we roast a bit more softly. Whereas coffees that are lower altitude, we kind of start at a more temperate temperature to start, be a bit more comfortable with it, a little bit more gentle, and roast it through for a longer period of time.
Okay. Things like pesticides. Does the coffee plant have natural pests that?
Plenty. Lots and lots of pests. Costa Rica is really battling. They've got a horrible rust at the moment. It pretty much decimated their coffee industry for quite a while. It is slowly coming back. Pesticides are a big thing. So if you're buying a coffee over counter on a shelf and you're paying $100 for a kilogram, it's not a coffee that has been considered all in terms of actually the way it's grown, the organic structures, all that kind of thing. It's part of the specialty industry. It's why you pay a bit more. Our farmers, all our coffees bar one, are actually grown under strict organic conditions. The other one that we've got hasn't got the certification, but they grow it appropriately. Some of the certifications are often difficult to achieve, like a fair trade, because it's actually just a tick-the-box process, pay a bit of a fee, get your certification, off you go. For a small farmer who's got 100 trees, that's not going to work. So in Africa, they've developed washing stations. So the washing station in a region buys coffee from all little small farmers, but then they're quite strict as well as to how it's grown, all that process, no fertilizer, or there's allowed to be a natural fertilizer. You'll often see on a farm, there's a huge big shed filled with cows. The cows aren't there for milk, the cows are there strictly for manure. Put that back into the ground, and then often your second growth above a coffee tree will be something like an avocado or a macadamian, and then they're using all the shells and the break from that, and they're putting that into their composting systems to constantly fertilizing with a natural process. Yeah, that's quite key. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mark. We're going to find out a little bit more about the roasting process next time.